Hey you guys, welcome back. So today's video is going to be the first video in a new series. I'm really excited about this one because I want to share with you guys a plant of the week. One of my favorite plants every single week, tell you a little bit about that plant, the characteristics about it, where it loves to be planted, where it loves to grow, where it does the best, just the overall maintenance requirements on it, how to fertilize, and then some companion plants that do super well with it. So this will be hopefully a great shopping list for some of you guys who are looking to recreate some of that same look that I use within my landscapes and within my own garden. So I thought we'd start right here in my garden and of course with one of my favorite plants. But before we get started, Bryce, if you want to kind of pan around and kind of let everybody see just kind of how these plants set into their environment. So if this is the kind of look that you guys like, if you kind of like a heavy tropical kind of layered type of landscape look, then these are the plants that I'm going to showcase now and every single week and into the near future and tell you a little bit about some of the fun stuff. So within my own garden,
it may be time for an updated backyard tour.
Oh, you know what? It probably is. If you guys are up for a backyard spring updated tour and I go through the plants individually and tell you a little bit about them and outline them a bit, then let me know in the comments down below and I will do an updated spring or early summer garden tour. So, but for now, we're going to focus on one plant in particular. I am going to focus on, I'm sure this is a shocker to you guys who watch my videos, but I'm going to focus on the Sanchezia. I absolutely love working with Sanchezia. So this is Sanchezia nobilis. It is an overall super hardy plant, which is pretty much the only plants that I tend to work with in my very own garden. It is a fantastic leaf color. I love the variations. I just love this outline. I love the way it shows off in a garden and then how easy it is to work with. So the Sanchezia nobilis are native to Peru, which ironically enough, I am also native to Peru. So maybe that's my secret fascination with it. But I honestly, my fascination with it is just overall how well it does in so many different environments. It is planted here in pretty much good sun, but then I've got them planted all the way at the end there that get very little sun. Okay, so you can tell the difference between what we're looking at with a little bit more sun. We're a little bit bleached out here, a little bit brighter in tone and color. And then when we get down here into the shade, look at how the coloration changes. It goes into a deeper pattern, almost like a cream color rather than a yellow. Super cool. And it's amazing to me how the same plant can do so well in a full sun environment and a partial sun environment. So if it's going to be planted in a full sun environment, you want to make sure that it's planted underneath a canopy of trees because it can absolutely burn along the edges if it's not kind of a little filtered or a little protected. So this is about as much sun as I like to see it get. So early morning, midday, but by the time it's 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, you want it to not have any sun on it at all. You want it to be protected. So this is a fantastic environment for it. When they're like this, you'll notice that the leaves are a little bit more yellow, a little brighter in coloration. When they're planted in the shade environment, you'll notice that the leaves are more of a, almost like this is more of a whiter tone to it versus a yellow. And then the leaves, instead of it being green, they're almost like a charcoal or a black coloring. So it kind of takes on a whole different kind of light, but what it does do is it does bring kind of a spotlight or a brightness to a dark area in the garden. So I often use them in shade environments. This is their overall height that I like to keep them at. I usually put them in an area where I use them as a skirt planting. So Bryce, if you kind of pop over top of this plant, you'll see that the Queen Emma back here, she's got a beautiful centerpiece to her, but she's got kind of an ugly trunk that's here. So they do a great job of kind of disguising that trunk by really giving you a nice skirt boundary.
Not to mention that.
And not to mention, yes, exactly, covering the GFI outlets that we have there. So they're just kind of a great overall blocker and easily kept at 3.5 foot tall and just really do well. Now, when I do my trimming on them, I usually just hand prune these guys. I'll take my clippers and I just hand prune them to whatever size that I want them to be. So I will make sure that the edges here in the front, I keep them a little bit shorter and I allow the taller in the center area to kind of round up higher. So to the front a little bit shorter and then round up. And then I do let these grow together. So the reason...
One more time?
Absolutely. So when I do my trimming on these guys, what I do is I take my handy clippers, and you'll kind of see along this front section, I'll trim them a little tighter along the front face of it. And then as I come up here, I'll let them get a little bit taller. So I'll leave these guys a little bit taller and then kind of layer down and trim them. So I know it sounds like a lot, but it really takes me no time to trim these guys. I'll just take the tops and just nip them off, leave this a little bit taller, and then take the bottoms and kind of keep them nice and nipped. This will allow that plant to stay nice and compact and thin. But you definitely do want to trim these guys. I've seen people let them get 4, 5, 6 foot tall, because just like anything in Florida, it will continue to grow even if it's a dwarf plant. But you really do want to allow that air to get through the middle of them, because they can get so dense and so thick, which makes them beautiful, but it can also make them have a fungus or, you know, get attacked by bugs because there's no air that gets to the inside. So when you do that light trimming, it allows that air to circulate all the way through the plants. So I trim about 4 times a year. Every 90 days, I come through and do a light trimming on these. What's great about a lot of the tropicals that I use, when you do your trimming, say you trim one side too short and you kind of hack at it, kind of like, you know, kind of like cutting your bangs, you know. It just ends up being an ugly trim. Don't worry, these guys flush out nice and round, so they'll really kind of correct themselves. So go ahead, if you do trim one side a little bit off, just now go back to an overall even plant, even if it's going to be smaller than what you anticipated it being, because it'll round out and fluff right back out. So you kind of can't do any harm to it. Now, this plant is a tropical plant, does super well in Florida, towards the south end. It does not like to be in temperatures colder than 32 degrees. So when it's 32 degrees, I either cover them or I'll notice that I'll get a lot of burn along the edges of the leaves if we get into that temperature. So I tend to cover them because they're such a pretty leaf. I hate to lose any of it. Now, when you do get a cold burn on them, when it starts to warm up for the spring, just cut that plant back and it'll flush out really, really nice. So, it's a kind of an overall durable plant. The plants that I tend to pair it with are plants kind of like these, like I said, where I'm trying to cover something and I kind of want to create a nice 3-foot border or a 3-foot skirt in front of them. Now, if I don't plant them with something like this popping out of the middle of it or something like a palm popping out of the middle of it, I'll take these and I'll plant them with something like the Rojo Congo copper leaves, or the Blaze copper leaves, or the Marguerite copper leaves. You see the pattern there? The reason why is because copper leaves like that same amount of moisture that these guys like. Copper leaves like water, and so does Sanchezia. Sanchezia are not going to work well in a dry environment. So a xeriscape around agaves, they really, really do like a more moist environment. So they love the humidity of Florida. You'll notice that in the midday sun, they'll kind of wilt on you, and if you see that happening, they're just too dry in that environment. So if you're not going to add more water to them, then put them in more of a shady spot where they're just not drying out on you as fast. So what else? They do bloom. It is a really pretty tubular kind of bloom, and that happens about once a year. It's not huge when it does happen because it's so short-lived, but it is a lovely bloom, and that usually happens right into late winter, early spring in that time frame, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, so they really do take on that color. But overall, they are a winner in my book. I don't have any trouble with pests. And I think that a lot of that has to do with is I do trim them about every 90 days. So about every 3 months, I'll come through and give them a little bit of a haircut that lets that air get in. They're really able to fight off any kind of bugs or any kind of problems. If I do get any type of bugs, then I will do a drench of Dominion on them. So, and I'll be sure to list that down below of what I use. But it's a pretty easy drench. You just put a ½ ounce in with a gallon of water and just sprinkle it along the top of this and of course, do what it says, drench it, and it'll drench the root system and help keep the plant healthy. But yeah, overall, it is one of my favorite plants to use. Hardy, tough, easy to work with. I fertilize it with 8-2-12, which is a palm fertilizer, but it tends to really, really like that and keeps the leaves nice and shiny. So yeah, if you guys run across any other questions on some Sanchezia that you might have, then please stick them in the comments down below, and I'd love to share that with you. do not forget to like and subscribe. And I hope that the series is something that you guys want to see. If you want to know something specific about any plant or tree, then please let me know in the comments, and then I'll be sure to adapt that and add that to the future plant of the week or tree of the week if I throw one of those in there. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video, or see you next week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at True Garden.
Oh, that's right. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, and if you guys have made it through this video, then definitely put True Gardener in the comments down below, because you are a true gardener if you made it through. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you learned something on the Sanchezia. See you later.